do this. All the meeting to order here. Let's welcome our guest.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, our Assistant Area Manager for the Bureau of Reclamation, Sean Torpe, is here out of Albuquerque. He had requested to address the board.
Okay.
Good morning.
So, go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for letting me talk for a few minutes. Wanted to come down. Jennifer and I were down, I believe, in June. Try to make it a somewhat regular visit to see you guys. Today I just wanted to talk a little bit about water operations and how things went this year. I think Jennifer and I, when we came in June, we talked about kind of the new roles for Elephant Butte and Albuquerque, and the month before we had actually briefed the Elephant Butte's board, and it had just happened. We just made the decision that the water operations folks out of Albuquerque would start doing water directives for Elephant Butte Power Plant. One of the reasons is, as we talked about at the annual operating plan meeting in April, we knew Caballo would get up to 60, 70,000, but then we would drop it pretty quickly and have it hover around the mid-30s for most of the irrigation season. That didn't quite happen in the beginning of the year. We talked with the Power Office. So the Power Office out of Salt Lake City now oversees Elephant Butte. Albuquerque doesn't have that oversight. We do pay for Elephant Butte, but we don't have the oversight anymore. And throughout reclamation, it's very common that water operations dictates power operations. So this wasn't anything new for reclamation. It's just something that hadn't happened at Elephant Butte. I think, as you probably saw most of the year after we kind of took that over in mid-May, starting in June, Caballo went down, and we kept it right in the mid-30s for most of the season. I know Elephant Butte was, at last month's board meeting, was very happy with how things went. I think we are all very happy. Elephant Butte's been really on board with how things have gone. They've been able to produce power the whole time. I don't think we bypassed it all this year. Yvette McKenna's group out of Albuquerque did a great job, along with working with Robert and James in Elephant Butte. I think we had a good year, as much as it's been a dire water year. I think the communication was really great, so I appreciate everyone's working with us and keeping that communication open.
Well, I think so. We appreciate it too. I think it did work well, after you all got that back down there. So yeah, it did average about 30. Aren't I right? Well, Jay or Al,
Yeah, well, the EPCWID really pays closer attention to it.
I know James kind of. Yeah.
It's at about 30 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, at first we were a little concerned as you went to Salt Lake City, but I mean, it looks like everything's working out, it seemed like.
Yeah, the Power Office, the Talmadge Oxford, he's the power manager. He's been great. He's very focused on ensuring that we keep our customers happy, and we do what we need to do to make sure the water operations is the primary. Not power.
We like to hear that.
Yeah. If you don't have any other questions, I got two more things. I just wanted to briefly talk about the DOI rework. That's been in the news. The Secretary has been pushing that. So I believe they've gotten pretty settled on the 12 unified regions. As you know, we had 8 bureaus and 49 regions. He would like to downsize that to 12 regions. For the Albuquerque area office, we would stay in the same Upper Colorado region. What happens with the region, it gets a little bit bigger, so it's all state-based now. The Upper Colorado region's got New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. So we would take on a few more power plants from our old Great Plains region out of Wyoming. As you probably also would notice, is the region gets cut off at the Texas-New Mexico border. We are working with, so the new region is in Texas and Oklahoma. So we don't have the Bureau doesn't have a regional office in Texas or Oklahoma. We have 2 area offices, one in Oklahoma City and one in Austin. But what we would do is work out an agreement with that new region to keep El Paso and Balmaray. And we would do that also, so part of the lower Colorado region goes into New Mexico on the Gila. They would do an agreement with us, and they'd keep the Gila project. So it's no change necessarily to the work. We're just the Secretary wants to try and limit redundancies be more agile, more flexible, and so more to come on that. The Upper Colorado region is going to be the first to kind of take this approach. We're working, our regional directors along with the other senior executives, we're meeting in Denver this week to start talking about how to make this or implement this year. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that in Albuquerque would continue to do the Rio Grande project all the way through Texas.
And I know there's been talk about moving the Washington operation to Denver?
Yes. I haven't heard much. There has been talk, but I don't know. I don't have a status on that.
Okay.
And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was, so we've taken on a pretty big records management initiative out of the El Paso office as it relates to the litigation. We had a 2-week records management team down in July. So we've been boxing up a lot of the records that would relate to litigation, water operations. I just wanted to give you a heads up. Just if you need documents, we may not be as able to produce them as quickly as we did because they're boxed up. We're working on getting a scanning contract in the next month and a half to get everything scanned in, so that we're ready for any needs of the attorneys. So
They're physically boxed up.
Yeah. So we went
They're
through.
being moved to.
So right now they're in El Paso still. We're trying to figure out, we boxed them up because we thought we might have to ship them out to get scanned. We're trying to get someone to come on site and scan them, so we don't have to worry about that. But once they're all scanned in, it'll be much easier access, and then ultimately they probably will be either archived depending on how old they are, or potentially moved up to Albuquerque. But everyone will have access through the electronic.
Yeah, we won't, we really depend on a lot of them, mainly for construction records,
Yeah.
almost on a daily basis, right, Jay? So moving
Right.
anything out of El Paso,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the litigation, you have to scan on that stuff, but we'd like it to be retained here, so that's what we get. I mean, it'll cause a big hardship to us, especially, like the stuff we just did with the railroad.
Well, that's why I was wondering, there's not gonna be any presence at all of the boundary here, eventually is what you're telling me?
I'm sorry?
Not even a storeroom or a?
Oh, yeah, no, there will be. I mean, the majority of records, everything that El Paso needs will stay.
Okay.
Then we can, as-built drawings and licenses and things like that. We've got a lot of them here in our vault that we may do good stuff, but there's, just every once in a while. It's actually on a regular basis. It's
Right.
almost on a weekly basis. We're talking to Bird because there's so much urbanization.
Yeah.
We're discovering stuff all the time that we don't have drawings of, and he gets them for us, so it's been really helpful.
And from what Bert told me, a lot of that is already scanned.
Yeah, I think almost always he sends us a PDF.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just as long as he has access to those hard drives.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then the El Paso office is supposed to move from the east side to executive? Is that still the plan?
Correct. We're working on, so the International Boundary Water Commission is moving in, I believe, mid to late November. They have an extra half of a floor that they don't have anyone to fill. And so they had asked, and we had tried to figure out a way to potentially move in with them. Our footprint obviously has shrunk some here in El Paso. The 2 buildings we currently have are much larger than we need. Ultimately, we've tried to get more in the middle of the 2 districts. So we're on the east side of El Paso, not the west side where we typically were in the past. It's a challenge with GSA, working with them. We thought it would be pretty easy to just be able to do a small lease, sublease from IBWC, but it's potentially turning into a little bit bigger thing. So not 100% sure how long this will take, but it's still the plan. And IBWC and the building owner are still anxious for us to go in.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you.
Appreciate it for the update. CB, would you like to say anything right now?
I don't think I have to, but.
Okay.
And just for the board members, CB Burns, our employee labor attorney, is here visiting with us today. So.
Other than, hello.
All right. Well, then let's proceed. Item 3 in your packet is the minutes of last month's meeting. And if anybody sees anything, Larry, you or Mike have anything?
No, I'm tired of it. Make a motion.
All right, motion to accept the minutes, as amended, and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 4, appointment of secretary for board of directors. Is this an election or an appointment, Jay?
It's actually, it's voted on by
Voted on
by you all, the board
boards.
members. Yes.
I'll entertain a motion for secretary of the board.
And it's a vacancy created by the death of
Lynn
Mr.
Dorsey.
Singh.
Mike, you want to nominate anybody?
See that guy?
Think the guy to your left.
Larry, what is it?
Yeah. And, now, the guy who ran the meeting in second. That's
Yeah.
unusual.
Yes.
That's unusual.
There's only 3 of you, so.
Yeah.
There's only 3 of us, so I
How
would
many
assume I
Larry do
could.
secretary?
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed signify by saying aye. Okay, very good. Congratulations, Larry.
Yeah.
Condolences. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Number 5, Mary, your turn.
I've provided an updated spreadsheet on the investments. The change on this report was the pledges for Westar. I did not receive them until this past meeting. So that was the only adjustment made to the investment report.
All right, now, we're not at our quarterly report yet, are we?
No, sir, we approved that in last month.
So the only numbers that would have changed would have been the guarantees from Westar.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, from 18.7 to 18.4, okay. You know,
And at this time for the T-bills, I did leave a message for them to call back to know the status. We did submit the application about 3 weeks ago, right after last board meeting, the last board meeting. So I'm waiting on the status for it. Hopefully here soon we'll get rolling on that.
I did notice they've been pretty flat. 2 years, like just 0.2% under the 30-year or something like that. Hope we don't get an inverted curve here at some point. Okay. Questions on the balance sheet, gentlemen? On that same tab A. Or anything you want to explain, Mary?
You know, the last month we had questions on the collection fee. It's recorded on the receivable and on the accounts payable side. The accounts payable side is for, once funds are collected from the customer, then it's issued out to Landberger. And then the receivable side is what we assess on the account for those who are past due.
Very good. Mary, that 1,111,600 accounts receivable other, is that one of the payments from the city?
That is still the receivable for the drain maintenance that we're trying to correct
For the
with
drain
the audit.
Okay.
And they are still working on that, trying to assess how they're going to take care of it. So that's why the audit was not presented in this board meeting, but should be presented next month
Okay.
for 2016, 2017.
Okay, very good. Hello, Mr. Spear.
Traffic is a standstill on the west side. I mean,
Ooh.
there's no movement
Uh-oh.
because of Sullivan Park.
Uh-oh. They got us down. Well, that's all right. The inventory assets, that's actually putting a value on our inventory,
Yes,
mostly in the repairs in the shops.
yes. Equipment, parts, filters, parts for the water distribution, gates, turnouts.
Okay. see anything else? You glad you explained that collection? I had a little question mark about that, sure. So I'm glad you explained that. Financial statements.
We can go over that with along with the budget because it is
With the
part
budget?
of the
All right.
presentation of the new budget.
How much of the budget are we gonna get into today? Y'all gonna give me a preliminary, overview of it?
Yes, we have the preliminary summary on the first page, and if you have any further questions, we may have, we can go into each category with capital projects, capital assets, for the revenue and the expenses.
Okay. I did see that one. Where was that? That tab,
Tab D.
But
yeah, there
also
it is.
provided.
Okay, then let's wait till we get there then. We'll bounce around a little bit. All right. The $500 check report.
What's that, Weekly Hydrology Company? Is that about? That one?
It's digitizers for the flow meter they use for
For the
the
river
river
team.
team on the canal. It's just supplies, so,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
various
So
electronic.
new meters that, Robert had ordered. Yes.
Mary Lane 3, it just says Wex. Is that the right name of the bank? That's not West Star or something like that?
No, what's back
Wax?
is our A1 fueling.
It's an A-line.
Yes.
Contact Engineering Solutions, what's that?
Pipe,
Just the pipe, just the supply of pipe?
it's by Duramax. They're the vendors for the pipe.
Oh, okay, I thought we just hired new engineers.
They do some engineering, we talked about using them before, mainly on bridges. Pre-engineer, some of those, where they ship the bridge apart, some pieces.
And we're already paid off for the US Borough. This will be the end, the last check for the year.
For the quarter, yes, and we'll be starting the new quarter.
Then the new quarter, so we're right on track. Okay. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fedem, this is actually the first payment for the new year.
For the new year?
Correct. As it's usually due on September 1st, so payment was issued prior to that, and then we started.
Okay, so this is the new quarter.
The new quarter.
Larry? Any more questions? Credit card report. Everything looks all right to me, Mary. Okay, hearing none, Mary, take over again. Where are we going?
We also have the legal consulting fee report.
Oh, yeah.
Any questions?
Okay. Judy, the Max Hicks things is over. That was related to the, the election? The Max Hicks? The law office of Max?
Renee Hicks.
That was
I
on
know
the
that-
rights,
Yeah, that was a,
his real estate.
yeah.
Okay.
Reservation and retirement, water rates.
Okay. All right, let's see. We've got a new sheet on the analysis of available funds.
Yes, I provided an updated budget this morning. There were just some minor changes on certain accounts, but it significantly reduced between the revenue and the expenses for the new year from 1.7 to 1.2.
Okay.
That was a deficit projected for next year.
Wait a minute. You lowered the deficit project for next year? You made it smaller, you shrunk it, or you made it bigger, you shrunk it? Okay. All right.
There was just some additional revenues that we've been able to mature to the point where we could put them in the budget. Having to do with what you guys, real estate sales that we approved at the last board meeting.
Okay.
So,
Anything else? Increase the licensing fees a little bit.
yeah, I think we changed it. We just got better estimates in some of those numbers. They're still conservative. We've always been able to,
Okay.
we projected a deficit, what, for the last 4 years in a row, right?
Yeah.
And we've never had one.
Yes, we've always superseded. Yes.
Well, we'll talk about it. You're good, you know, our revenues, because we're in arrears, Mary's always reminding me, because I'm trying to make it in real time, you know, County 7's approach to the cash basis, but we really are in a accrual type situation, because we haven't even billed for the water we delivered this year. We won't bill till the next fiscal year. So you're gonna see a lot of numbers that are flywheeling into, so the year after, or not this budget, but the next budget, so when you got, it's gonna be
Okay. All right.
very much different than this one.
It's okay. As long as you keep shrinking it, we're okay.
Well, that's what I can tell you is that's really.
I know what you're doing. I'm gonna look at the good side of it.
That deficit's gonna grow significantly in the next, a year from today.
Yeah, especially if there's no snowpack. Okay.
And as Val stated, that the deficit, the majority of it was due to the 2001 implement contract, which is, they are billed. We do receive one more payment in the new fiscal from this year, which is about 1.3 million. But following year, we project to deliver less water, so
Yeah.
that is a reduction.
Yeah, that one,
is a big hole.
that one's, the way that those payments come in, they're more, they're quarterly, so they're not in arrears. Well, they are quarterly in arrear, but they're not the full annual like our other payments. And so, and we have one, it's a calendar year instead of a fiscal, so there's one payment always comes in and then the next one. So we flywheel 1 quarter of those payments in, but then next year we're projecting they'll be probably less than $70,000. So we're going from what, 3-point-some million to $70,000?
Well, that'll affect your budget, won't it? Hurt your pocketbook.
Well, that's what we found, other sources of revenue and other cuts to make on this budget to make up for that,
Okay.
right? As much as we could.
Looks like austerity mode. Maybe the Bureau can arrange for more snow pack.
That'd be good.
Just saying. Help us all. Okay.
Yeah, I think we cut the capital budget down quite a bit. We had to up the well. I mean, are we ready to go over? Are you guys on the
Yeah.
sheet?
Yeah, I think so, we're there.
Mary can't sit on the screen behind you, just for them, but we want to just go line by line.
Yeah, or at least the ones you think are more significant, okay?
Well, the first one that I think is the most critical that we use, even though it's for budgetary reasons right now, is that you've got to make a decision. What is Rose? Let's say
I'm right here.
in October, right? They've got to set the tax rate.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so that's what you don't have to do it today. I don't think it's on the agenda for
No, it's
today,
not.
but these are the numbers that we put in the budget, assuming that next month you will adopt these
Are
numbers.
those last year?
was it last year?
I mean, our current year.
Right, current, yeah. Well, you haven't adopted the current year's taxes yet, so is where
Yeah,
it
well, yeah, I'll be
the previous.
okay, but those were,
Yeah, last year you
Last
paid
year.
25 an acre and $20 an acre for it, so.
okay,
And that's, the number, we haven't got hopefully by October, we'll have a pretty good number on the amount of water delivered. That's, there's significant waters that are delivered under contracts that aren't in that delivery fee. They don't have delivery fees, they have contract fees, so those waters aren't in there. Just the ones that, so the amount of total water delivered is greater than that. Significantly greater, but that's the amount that we're taxable.
And the taxes, you all have left them the same the last 3 years, Rose, or how?
So, quite a few.
it's been a while,
More than
A
that?
couple of years.
it's been a while.
Since 2013, it's been the same.
5 years.
So, Al, you mentioned those other funds that are they shown here at all?
Yeah, we'll go, when we go through the revenues, I'll go show you the other funds.
Okay,
So this is just,
for the taxes.
I mean, I haven't asked Rose or Mary, we've discussed this, I think our recommendation is leave it the same, right?
Yes.
So,
That's the same.
Because if it's as dire as it looks, it's gonna be pretty hard on the farmers anyway.
so roughly, yeah, it's
And then we have enough, yeah, that's hopefully why we had a service. To try
right, that's.
and bridge this just one bad year.
Just one bad year.
This is just budgeting. You know, our budget's just a tool. How many times do we ask you to amend the budget every year? 2 or 3 times.
If you can recall, back I think it was 04, 05, and 06, you all actually reduced taxes 3 years in a row,
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we forget about that, don't we?
and, which was
No, we
good
don't.
for the
Everybody else
constituents.
forgets about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't.
is that the way we're at?
Everybody else forgets.
Pocketbook, don't forget about it.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that, of course, I think most long-term finance people obviously work with the pool tables and the time value of money, which, you know, makes sense, even though we're not in any hyperinflation, but even at 2.5%. Those numbers there, and I prepare a different chart that is adjusted for inflation, and you got your taxes is lower now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to take these back to 1917, the taxes they had in 1917 were greater than these taxes are here. So, of course, they were paying for the dam then too, so it was an extra tax on everybody at that time, but it's, yeah, the district's done an exceptional job, and you can see that our budget's around, what is this one, 11 million? 11.3.
11.3. Yeah.
And so you're about 5 out of 11, so about 43% is revenue, is tax base, and the rest is other.
Al, have you heard that El Paso Natural Gas is gonna build a line through here out to California?
Well, they already have one.
They're gonna build another one.
Yeah.
It was in the paper.
Makes me
the other day.
nervous, because my property in Arizona has El Paso natural gas pipeline on it, so. Wonder-
Well, the point, of course, is that they may have to compensate the district.
Yeah. Well, right now, we're just on, the only thing that's in this, in the revenue, I guess we're ready to start on the revenues, but the only thing.
Yeah.
Go down. So the first part is cash available, so, sorry, Mary, I didn't mean to take you, if you wanna do this, or you want to interrupt me if I do it wrong. So, this is Mary's, did all this work.
Johnny is screwing up, man.
Yeah. So these are the amounts that we're trying to, work with the finance committee to get, moved from CDs to higher bearing government securities, since we've been working on that for a while, and we're pretty close. So there's a significant amount of this, and if we could get away from CDs and get into, even, swiping funds, where, in other words, where we can, through a wire transfer, just within 24 hours, have the funds put back into our account, there's significant opportunities for income. We put that in this model, and I'll show it to you in a minute. So we're thinking that this is gonna be done by November 1st, right, Mary? So we're going to have our investments in place, and so obviously, almost all the CDs can go into that as they become ready to cash in, and then a lot of this checking account, of course, some of that is just that since we're sort of on hold with the government securities, hasn't been moved. It would have been in CDs normally by now, but we thought any day now we would get approval. Let's see, this is just a holding account, right, for escrow stuff and petty cash, and then the money market that was a auditor's recommendation many years ago, just in case there was some sort of banking problem, that we would have emergency funds available on an instantaneous basis. Have you revisited that with the auditor about having that account?
Yes, we have.
I mean, it's up to, I guess Finance Committee could look at it, you guys make a recommendation. Seemed to make sense at the time, back when then there was a lot of banking issues, but maybe we really don't expect our bank to not allow us to withdraw money. I hope not. Probably if one bank gets hit, they'll all get hit, but that'll be a pretty rare case. But we never use that, right, Mary?
No, it's just earning interest.
Yeah, it just charges very little interest. So. Anyways, that's our total funds. And these are estimated incomes. Income is a little bit greater than expenses for this month or the next month, so they balance out. So that's the total that we have there, which is higher than it's ever been, right? So that's your buffer that the Finance Committee's wanted us to create for the drought scenario that's playing out. It looks like it's going to play out for next year. So we should be in a good place. So the significant amount of that increase was litigation revenue. You guys are aware of that. So these are the revenue estimates. Now each one of these are itemized in the pages that follow this. This is just a roll-up summary. So again, the two numbers that are tax-based that come down from the top of this, those rates in there. There's obviously accounting fees and all sorts of stuff to do with the leasing of water and other things that we get revenue from. So we estimate that to be about $720,000. Licensing fees. Those are just fees that we have in place today, right? So that's a pretty firm number there.
Fees and as well as the real property income.
And the real, yeah, that's right, it's rolled up in there. So, okay, then there's one clarification. It'd be footnoted in the next page, but just I'll say it now, that we did move on the Clint spur drain, the revenue, that's $350,000, and the board approved that at the last meeting, but we don't expect to actually close on that until November 1st. In fact, we're on purpose going to target that date, right? We're not close to closing now because they're doing some survey work, but
Right.
So we think that it's reasonable. It'd be difficult to get it done in October possibly, and so we thought we'd just move it to November. So we moved that $350,000 out of last year's income into the next year, just because we're not going to close. We may not close in time unless you guys have a projection of that. And it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It's either going to go into reserves or it's going to go into next year's revenue. So that's in that 1.9. Most of that money is what Mary just said it was. That's the flywheel or the leftover money from the 2001 contract. That's the last payment, which doesn't occur until next fiscal year. And then after that, that contract hibernates for the drought. Remember, that contract has very limited revenues except for when the allocation is above 2 acre feet. So at 2 acre feet and below, there's really no revenue, very, very limited revenue.
Do you have, off the top of your head, what the last year's numbers were?
Mary probably does, but 3.4 million or something for the.
Projected for October 31st would be 4.7.
For last year, for that category. So that's a $2.7 million drop.
Just to get an idea.
That's almost all from that one contract. administrative revenue is pretty stable. Special and capital projects has to do with grants and reimbursables, right? And we always get confused. Some get moved in because the money's being used, like for the drain maintenance program, it's actually going into capital projects. It gets put in under the capital projects, and other money is actually going in for like telemetry and things like that. It goes into the reimbursement. So those are just grant, typically both of these, or third-party contracts that we have with the city for maintenance purposes. So again, these are all detailed on the next pages that are attached. There's a full page on each of these, or multiple pages. And then this is the roll-up of expenses. I like doing the revenue part, so I'm gonna turn the expense part over to Mary.
Smart engineer.
Well, she knows that works better than me. So, I think most of these are pretty much just trying to hold the same, right?
Yes.
Is there anything that,
We do have a reduction on the capital projects on the expense side. And a slight increase on the well maintenance and fuel
yeah,
due to the
drought.
possibility of using the wells.
How much did you decrease that capital projects? Do you remember?
940.
Ooh, that much, huh? Okay. And the capital assets, did you decrease that, or were you keeping that?
Capital assets, there's a slight increase,
Okay.
keeping it pretty much the same as last year, from 1,064,000 to 1,097,000.
Okay, and projects, some of these are dependent on grants and,
That's correct.
is that why
We've got 2 grants already awarded, and we're awaiting the Bureau of Reclamation. Hopefully, we can land one of those, and then there's 2 more with Texas Water Development Board.
if that happens, will our projects?
yeah, they'll significantly change, especially the one with reclamation. It's a $2 million, $1 million grant. We don't, obviously may not get that much, but for canal lining on the riverside. And plus, it's a multi-year project, so it'll be spread out over 3 years, so it won't all be realized next year if we do get it. But we'll have to come back for budget amendments when those grants, if we receive
If
those
they
grants.
go, so you're looking at,
We provided a list for the 3-year project, so
Oh, yeah.
that's detailed.
Yeah, if you want to switch to that, let's look at that now. It's probably good.
Yeah.
There's it should be, it's probably the one that's in fine print,
On that
because it doesn't
last
fit on the
page.
page. Sorry about
very
that.
last page.
It really should, we
So
should.
which did you cut out? Or, I mean, you're looking at the most dire projection, is that right, Mary? On the capital projects?
Yes,
Well, it's,
1-year and 3-year.
Or
yeah,
realistic, I guess, but,
part of it's reimbursed. So the way that this sheet works is that, so the first, there's project costs, which are rough estimated. There's a big disclaimer at the bottom what this is, so it's a rough order of magnitude. So there's been no hard price estimates on very little of it. This is just sort of Pete, me talking to Pete and then thinking how much is gonna, and then what's the equivalent to what that's worth. So that's about 1.9 million, but that has all of equivalent of all our equipment, the time value of our equipment, and of all of our employees, which are covered elsewhere in the budget. They're under their own line items. So that's not really money that's going to be independent of the payroll or the equipment maintenance costs or any of that. So what we estimate over the side is what we're actually going to have to spend above and beyond what's not in other line items, which is 575. So we pick projects specifically that have lower out-of-pocket expenses than we
biggest bang for
did
the
last
buck.
year.
so that, all that paragraph at the bottom is, you could replace it with a WAG, right?
WAG, yeah, it's same. ROM same as the WAG. It's a
Okay.
it's a little
It's a
better.
little better than that, okay.
Because it's not wild, I mean, it's rough. But,
Okay.
so, no, I think those numbers will come
Okay,
in
no, I
pretty
understand.
consistent.
Okay, then you're trying to be as realistic as you can, I appreciate that, that looks good.
And then we put in
It's
our,
hard to see it go down, you know?
yeah, We put in some of our offsetting money in there too, so there's some money that, even of that's out of pocket, we actually get reimbursed for, so. Having said that, it's a still aggressive construction schedule.
Yeah.
The big parts of it are the Franklin Canal, Passmore to the feeder, that section that we had, we've got 1,800 feet of that to do, which was a big canal. Check replacements, we've been talking about the problems we've had at Wasteway 2 and I-0, and so that's probably the single biggest project.
Right. And we've had a lot of, with the drought situation that we're facing, a lot of farmers have requested different projects. Of course, that's all that, at their, some of it at their cost. Yeah.
New flumes, new turnouts.
Right, culverts and so on. And so anyway, we've been going over it with Pete and Robert and staff on what we can do really this coming year, because we've really gotten a lot of inquiries, and in fact, Pete was out there all day yesterday talking to farmers that want additional work, just prepping their wells and so on to go from one side of our drains and canals to the other side of their farms. So we were concerned about that, and really realistically, how much can we do, and not to bite off as much as we can chew.
Maybe back to that where the people are gonna request pumping into our system and.
Right, into the canals and so on.
Yeah, we don't know, we'll take advantage of the potentially late start next year on deliveries to clean the Franklin Canal this year, and then use the material we sort of combined it. It's down there on number 11. So we've got, unfortunately, it's not exactly matched up where the sediment is and where the low canal banks aren't. Historically, we just take the sediment out and put it on the bank right where we're next to it. We really need to move the sediment down. We've done a survey of a lot of Franklin Canal. We know where we have low spots, so we're gonna have to haul the dirt from portions of the canal that are in the city out to this area and use it to build up the low spots, especially with subdivisions going in to reinforce our canal banks. So that, we put that project on because of those issues, and there have been flooding issues. And the fact that we may have longer access to the
Longer of a chance to do it.
Chance to do it, whereas normally we're so busy building checks and other things that we don't have time to worry about the sediment. So we spent a lot of time on that with Pete to make sure he could do all that. That's all internal. We don't have any we're not going out for bid on any of these projects.
Right.
Well, you're still doing the lining quite a bit, so.
Right.
So it keeps us with what is now the 7-year plan, or year 3 of the 7-year. Every year gets add one more onto it.
Good.
At the end of 5, we plan to do a recaps of how the stuff we missed, and we're keeping track of each one, and some obviously we move, depending on priorities change each year, we'll renumber them, but we've never forgot anything. I don't think anything, it just gets moved forward.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. This last year, we had that stretch of the Franklin Canal from Loop 375 to Presa that TxDOT paid for and we weren't counting on, and it was a do or die situation that we needed to do, and we concrete lined that section. So that took away from finishing off the head gates on the Riverside Canal. We need to go back and finish those head gates this year. But we took advantage of that, and it was a real good project that turned out real nice.
Sure, you got us a little further advanced right there.
Yes.
Ron, I'm looking at those. Those look pretty good, the ones you've got prioritized. On the I-0, it says Wasteway 2, similar to FWC outlet. What do you mean there?
That's a Wasteway 2. That's the one IBWC hired that contractor that
Oh, yeah.
didn't really finish the project the way they should have. And in fact, we've been talking to IBWC on funding, them paying for those materials that we're going to need to finish out that project and repair those head gates the way they should be. Done?
Pete's not here, I think he wanted it, and maybe Rob, you remember, I know we're designing it like Wasteway 1 for the bay and the sediment control, but I think he wanted it similar to Faven's waste control, that's one down by
Right.
by the river. I think he wanted so we could drive equipment over the top of it, is that?
I believe so.
Yeah,
So you can get some equipment on the right side of the riverside.
On the fin side, on the
Fin
border,
side, yeah.
border fin side.
So it's a very similar design to Wasteway 1 in terms of the levee and the adaptation of existing culverts and with the addition, and the radial gates on the river, and we have to incorporate the I-0 into it, which makes sense, it's right there, so we save money. But the one thing that Pete wanted is for us to modify the design to, at Wasteway 1, you can't drive over the culverts, it's open, it's to save money, it was just open. And he wants us to put a bridge deck on it for heavy equipment, so it's ups the cost a little bit of it, but, that's his only way to ingress to, since a lot of our access on the border fence side has been cut off, this will reestablish